You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Alex not going to be able to make it with us tonight. He's got that whole JOB thing going, got the bills and the paycheck and all of that has to make sense. But we're going to hold down the fort like we always do. Kevin, it has been an interesting weekend here. How are things with you?
I am good. I welcome you from the friendly confines of my hotel room in San Antonio, Texas here this evening. But it's good, man. It was a kind of a crazy weekend. There was a Joe Mixon sighting for anybody who missed it.
Man, I remember a guy calling that on Friday.
No, my goodness. Thank goodness. I have a lot of Joe Mixon this year. I've been a very frustrated owner this year. And Sunday gave me a little hope that here through the bye week, the Bengals are going to remember, hey, we can run the ball too. We don't just have to throw it all over the yard. So I'm hoping that propels my team here a little bit. But it was good. I mean, the Jets with the upset, right? That was kind of crazy. Mahomes now has an elbow issue. So if you're a Patrick Mahomes owner.
I think it's Josh Allen that has the –
Oh, yeah, sorry. Josh Allen. I was thinking the Sunday night matchup, right, with the Chiefs and Titans. But, yes, a Josh Allen owner, beware. The Chiefs still struggle against the Titans. But, hey, if you listen Friday night, called that one Tennessee to cover. So hopefully y'all were able to cash in on that one here a little bit.
We also called the Jets to cover as well.
We did. We had a very good gambling weekend. Our success rate,
especially when it came to like the over and unders, were almost spot on. Like it was kind of crazy how good we did on those.
Every once in a while, right? We had ourselves a good weekend. Got some units back in the bank, if you will.
Absolutely. Who wishes they had units coming back into the bank though is Frank Reich. Losing the head coaching job at Indy. What was more surprising to me was the fact that Jeff Saturday comes out of nowhere and goes from being the TV pundit to an interim head coach. Which I guess he had been doing some consulting for the Colts there, that kind of stuff. But the only coaching experience that he has, right now. Yeah, I get it that he was the captain and the leader of those offensive lines. It was a very big vocal point and voice in the room as a player and all of those things. Like, I understand that, but it's a different world when you go from player to coach. And the only coaching experience that he has on this resume comes from a high school team. So
yeah. I think he's going to be in just a touch over his head, and that's no fault of his. If someone offers you, a job that's 1 of 32, how do you turn that down? So I wish him best of luck. I like Jeff Saturday, but it's going to be difficult. He's going to have a learning curve ahead of him here, and hopefully he handles it better than Nathaniel Hackett.
Yes. Well, and Josh McDaniels also having a similar learning curve, his second time at it seems.
Yeah, that's not a learning curve anymore. That's a pattern.
Well, that's also fair. That's also true. All righty. Well, now that we've bashed on some head coaches, I think it's time that we start getting into the mix here a little bit. All right, guys. So we do have a great show for you. We're going to hit up the mailbag. Of course, this is a show to throw all your questions, comments, all that stuff in. Let's see what we can do to help you march towards the cash and trophies, as is our purview to do. And let's go ahead and keep rocking and roll. We got some waiver wires we're going to hit up. We're going to hit the pines, the shines, all that kind of good stuff. We're going to get through it all. And you can follow us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. And one of the best places to support this independent podcast is to head over to the youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. You can see it right down there at the bottom of the screen there as well. Anyway, head over there, hit the subscribe. All righty. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said we're official.
We're official. Mr. COD Reaper is back to give his recap. So the Reaper came back after a tough loss in week 8 to the top playoff seed contender. Herbert, uncorked. Herbert had a good day. Henry had a good day. Eckler had a good day. Godwin, Olave, so likely had a pretty good day as a backup role. Walker having a good day there. The Reaper was 3-5 in week 8, and the score was 216 to 148. With a comeback now, he sits at 4-5, and the bye week with an effective roster of Herbert, Henry, Eckler, Cooper, Olave, Kmet, Walker, Maher, and the Titans defense. The bench, he's got Geno, Godwin, Monty, Palmer, likely the Jets D. Thanks for the help this season, y'all. Really appreciate it. Them crazy the 4 quarters. So absolutely right. You've got some good things you're kind of looking towards and marching for. I like your I like your roster that you've got going into this week. I think that there's no reason that you can't get back to 500, being 5-5 at the end of this thing. And I think that you're well on your way to get into the playoffs. And quite frankly, there's a lot of these things that I've kind of given up on, some of these thoughts that you have to be a high seed. You have to, really work some of this stuff to try and do that, because it seems to me the teams that make the playoffs, getting in at that last or that second to last spot into the playoffs, are actually sometimes the tougher teams when it comes down to week 15, week 16, because they've been working the waiver wire all week long and they had to scrap to get into it. And they've put together the pieces to get there, and they tend to have more depth. They tend to be more well-rounded, and they're able to cause some wrench in some things there. Unless of course your number 1 or number 2 seed in your league is just a completely stacked roster there. But that's all you got to do is make it to the dance, and then anything can happen. It's win in advance.
It is. I guess specifically for Mr. COD Reaper, I'd love to know what else you have out for tight end availability, because I'm not digging this Cole Kmet thing. No. Justin Fields has been on a tear, but it's been fields of running gold, not fields of tossing it all over the yard. And yes, it's the Lions, but they just don't use the tight end position a whole heck of a lot. So I think
I'm not sure what to make of this. I'm going up against a league owner that is letting 3 people have sweet packs, and I'm a new player in all this. Mr. COD Reaper, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but
I'm not sure.
Anyway,
follow there, but yes, I would say give us a breakdown of what's on your tight end waiver wire. Let's see if we can help you out here, because Kmet is usable if that's the best option, but I'm thinking we can find something a bit better for you here for your week 10 matchup.
Absolutely. So again, guys, if you have questions, comments, anything like that, let's go ahead and hit those things up and toss some of the questions out there. Let's go through some of these things, help you guys get ready and set for your week 10 matchup here. Leadership lesson saying it's time for week 10. Yes, it is. It is. And you know what, Kevin, while we wait for some of these comments and questions to come in here, why don't we go ahead and just preemptively kind of get to the waiver wire here and potentially see what might be out there, who might be some good ads, who is kind of some of the hot names out there that you're seeing for the waiver wire.
Well, I think Cade Otton is one that kind of jumps up, right? Got the first tight end touchdown for the Buccaneers here last week. So I think that's kind of a sneaky play. David Njoku, if people dropped him when he got injured, I think that's another play that's at least worth taking a peek at to see what you can do to kind of bolster your lineup. You still have Greg Dorsich from Denver, who's been seeing a pretty healthy target share. So I think that's something, again, that you can take a look at. Let's see here. We have, Derek, the tight end for the Lions. Was it Mitchell that caught the touchdown? Is that right?
Mitchell and Wright are the 2 tight ends over there now.
So I think that's a possible option. Bears might be a little bit tougher matchup, but with no Roquan and also no Quinn, their pass rush isn't quite what it was here a couple weeks ago.
So, yeah, as far as like, I'm right there with you, right? Like tight ends, there are some decent guys out there to go get. The
Njoku, Dulcich, all those guys are on the waiver wire. I'm understanding
Superchecks,
correctly.
Yeah, I'm going with Dulcich first off, and then Njoku, then Otten, then Hill is how I'm ranking that. Dulcich in 3 games that he's played those 3 weeks, he is a top 3 tight end over that span there. I don't have it where, including this last week where they were on bye, but he's still a top 4 tight end or top 10 tight end, I'm sure. Dulcich is the guy that I'd be looking to roll with on that, and Njoku would be right in that same mix.
I would drop Likely, and I think Andrews is going to be fine after the bye week.
Yep.
I think the only reason they held him out is because they had this bye week coming up, and it worked out well for him. I would drop Likely and Cole Kmet and pick up Dulcich first. That needs to be your first priority, and then Njoku right behind it. And then, excuse me, and then you're able to bounce back and forth between the two the rest of the season, because if Njoku comes back to what he was before his ankle injury, he was a top 5 tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He's a top 5 tight end. Dulcich has been playing at a really high level. He's been seeing a lot of catches, so it definitely helps in PPR leagues. But both those guys are substantial upgrades from what you have right now.
Yeah, and Dulcich, even with that bye week this last week, is still tight end 11 through those 4 weeks when we really saw him activated off the IR and playing. So weeks 6 through 9, 4 different weeks there. He's tight end 11, averaging 10.1 points a game during that stretch, which, if you look at it from a points per game average, sitting number 4 out there during those 4 weeks. So 11th overall in total points, and that includes the week that he was just on bye, and 4th in points per game during that same stretch. Like, that's a guy that is the late waiver wire ad at this point, and it's amazing how many folks have not followed up on that one and followed suit there. So Spirit IT say what's up.
What is going on, man?
And he also said his Knowles won and your dogs won. Good weekend for y'all.
It was. We're not going to talk about the Baylor Bears, though.
No, we're not. We're just move on along.
We're going to move on. We're going to move on.
It's a lost season. It's time for it's okay. They happen every once in a while, right? A lot of talent left, coaching regime change, all of that stuff. Exactly. I can keep doing some coach speak and everything else in there. But long story short, just hasn't been a good year for the Sooners, but I'm confident that we've got the right man at the helm and we can bounce back going forward.
There you go.
In the future years here. All right. Spirit T saying he lost in fantasy. Foreman really killed me, but on the bright side, found a QB in Justin Fields. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yes.
He's saying that Dulcich is available, but he has Kittle, so he doesn't have to worry about tight end.
Kittle's injury prone. I wouldn't sleep on Greg Dulcich, even though you have George Kittle. If you have kind of a slappy that you can drop, right? Kittle hasn't been putting up tight end 1 numbers consistently. Christian McCaffrey's taking a ton of targets there in San Francisco. You get Debo back from injury here this week. And obviously you still have Brandon Ayuk, who's been much more involved this year and much more productive than I thought he would be. So Kittle went from being kind of the first option here a couple years ago to, you could argue, he's 3rd or even 4th option now in the blink of an eye. So don't settle on the name power. If you have someone who you feel comfortable with dropping, you might be able to make the move and help yourself out here a little bit.
Absolutely. And I would, unless you're completely, unless it's one of those that you're dropping somebody that is going to be a massive impact player on another roster because you're that deep across the board there, I'd be looking at moving along from one of those players and having Dulcich and Kittle on my roster. Just from the standpoint, some of this also, there's a component of keep away that comes into play when you play fantasy football, right? Like, while you may not use them a particular week, you don't want to have them show up against you either, right? Like, it's one of those that, one of my favorite lines out of a movie out there is, well, of course you're going to play me. You're paying me X amount. Well, no. Your former team is paying half your salary. That's how much they think of you, is they're paying somebody else to play again. They're paying you to play against them. You don't want to put yourself in that position where you want to have somebody else that you dropped or that you had the potential to add onto your waiver or from the waiver wire, things like that. You don't want to have them playing against you. And no, you shouldn't be dropping Pickens either. If that's who you're going to be thinking about dropping for Dulcich, I would hang on to Pickens there as well. So
yeah, I agree with that.
all right, if you want to shoot out some list of candidates that you're thinking, we can tell you yes or no on it and tell you what we would be looking at if it's a player that we would drop to put Dulcich on. And that way we could just kind of see if it makes sense for you to do something like that or if it doesn't. So, alrighty. Well, while we wait for a couple of these things to come in, let's go ahead and hit this one up here real quick. Trophy Smack. So, guys, here at the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, we're all about them cash and them trophies. And at TrophySmack.com, you can get a completely customized trophy. You can find the link to it down in the description on YouTube and on the audio portions of these podcasts. So absolutely, you can head over there, use those links, sign up for a custom trophy, custom belt, custom ring, whatever your flavor is, whatever your heart's desire is. Trophy Smack's got you covered. And when you use those links, helps the good old boys out as well. Alrighty. So Spirit IT asking, at this point, Tom Brady, should you be dropping Tom Brady to add Dulcich onto your roster? And I'm going to assume that this is a single QB league at that point. And even at that point, I don't know that I'm necessarily looking to drop Brady. I mean, potentially, but it depends on how easily I can find something out there. Should something happen to Justin Fields?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would rather have Tom Brady just in case we see something go down with Fields because he's running so much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not so set on it that I say absolutely not, right? Like this one touchdown thing from Tom Brady isn't paying the bills, right? Like there's a reason that you went out and now you're playing Justin Fields over him. But I could think of a lot worse insurance policies on your roster than Tom Brady. And I do think that will provide overall more, I guess, security to your roster than Dulcich will if Kittle goes down.
Agreed. Alrighty. Start Dulcich, bench Njoku. I would.
Yes. That's exactly how I would do it for this week. We want to make sure that when Njoku comes back, he's seeing the same workload, that his ankle's holding up, that he's playing these full snaps. Yes, they're coming off a bye week, but good God, you have some tight ends on your waiver wire. Both of you guys, Reaper and Spear IT. Like that is, I would love to see these tight ends on my waiver wire.
Yes.
But yes, you're going to start Dulcich this week, and you're going to bench Njoku. And then we'll just probably look at it week to week going forward because I think that there's options out there that are crazy.
And Spirit T saying he's got Freiermuth and Njoku also out there. So, right, like in Spirit IT's case where he's got George Kittle, he's got players out there like Freiermuth, Njoku, and Dulcich. Is there one in particular that you'd probably favor over the other? I think I'd still probably lean Dulcich over Freiermuth, but just slightly.
You're talking for that one. Yeah. Rest of season, I think I'd rather have Njoku. Short term, I think Dulcich is the answer. I just don't trust the Pittsburgh passing offense, right? Like it's not last year where Big Ben was giving Freiermuth 8 targets a game. This is a completely different offense. George Pickens is getting more involved. Kenny Pickett is running a little bit more. It just looks a bit different. So Dulcich and Njoku both, I think, are better options than Freiermuth for the rest of the season. like I said, I'd rather have Njoku going forward. But if you say that you like Dulcich more, I'm not going to fight you on that. Like, I think they're pretty comparable. I just like the fact that until injury, Njoku had a pretty big body of work that gave us this top 5 tight end ranking to season to date. Dulcich, smaller sample size, but he has been good in it.
I would agree. Spirit T, what did you guys think of James Conner's performance this weekend?
I thought that it was pretty good for the first one back. I thought it justified a flex role and keeping him on your roster going forward for said flex role. You drafted him to be your running back too, so you've lasted this long without him, and now you can take his ability and kind of have some flexibility and depth with your roster if you have any injuries come up. So it was worthy of, you kept him for a reason, and it kind of justified it there. So you keep James Conner going forward.
Right. Well, and he was still running back 20 on the week. So he still gave you RB2 performance on the week there. So, when we were telling you that he's a viable flex play, when he outperforms that and would even give you an RB2 type of week. There's nothing more to say about that one. While it wasn't necessarily flashy, wasn't necessarily overly pretty, like he did just enough to get the job done for an RB20, right? Like, it didn't look great on 7 attempts for 45 yards on the ground, which again is over a 6 yard, average attempt, and 5 for 5 for 19 yards through the air. Like, it was all right. It was certainly nothing to be upset about on that one. Jaden over on YouTube asking, when should I pick up Watson? If you're gonna pick him up, it's this week.
Yep.
Do not wait until next week when he's when he comes back in week 13.
Yeah.
Yep. Week 13, I think is his first time that he's going to be able to start on that one. You're going to have a lot of people next week talking about that you need to go and get him because I believe the Browns are on bye come week 12. So if memory serves right, he's able to play week 13. He comes off the bye is on week 12, and then
game, isn't it?
I thought it was at least 11. Game. I thought it was an 11 game. You know what? Let's just look it up real quick.
Derek is pulling that up. Anyway, but we both agree to the same thing, right? Regardless of the suspension length, come this time next week, people are going to start talking about Watson more. So if you're wanting Watson and thinking that he could possibly be a difference maker for you, now's the time that you would want to pick up Deshaun Watson and get him a week ahead of time. So that way you already have him on your bench and see what may or may not be there. Now, I'm not expecting anything great his first start and maybe not even his second start. Yes, he's been training, but it's always weary. He's taken damn near 2 full years off of football. Like, there's going to be some rust that he needs to knock off a little bit. So you're going to have to be a little patient. And the problem with patience is you're running into the playoffs, and you can't afford patience in the playoffs. You need action. So it might be a little touch and go, but you want to grab him. Yes. Yeah, he's a difference maker. Jaden, remind me, who's your quarterback right now? Who are you running? Who are you running out there at QB? Because that'll probably justify it a little bit more, but I think overall I'm going to end up telling you the same thing. So it's just the defense. Okay. Sorry.
So it is 11 games. I did find that one out there. But I keep remembering for whatever reason that he wouldn't be that's why. It is 11 games, it's not 11 weeks. So with Cleveland having had their bye in week 9, the 11th game that he would be having as a suspension is going to be week 12. So that means that his first game back that we'll see him be able to hit the field is week 13. Okay. So again, right, like we're going into week 10. Going into week week 11, kind of after that one gets done, everybody's going to, all the other shows are going to start telling you to, if you want him, you got to go pick him up, because don't wait until week 13 to try and pick him up for those waiver wires. So be it, and some of these things, it's okay to be a week early, from the standpoint that you don't have to give up waiver priority. You don't have to spend much fab on it. And if you've got the roster spot that you can stash him and away you go. So yes, if you want him, this is the week that you're going to have to go get him, I think.
Second waiver wire position, you have Hurts as your starting quarterback.
No, I wouldn't do that one. I would wait till waivers clear. If he's still there, then pick him up.
I think I agree with that. I don't know that I'm giving up my second waiver position, just because there's still enough season left that if someone goes down and you need to, have a shot at a difference maker, mainly running back, right? That you need to be able to use that position for something that can benefit you right away.
Right. Spear IT, going forward, I don't know what to do with the Bills D. Do I trade, hold on to him? I think you got to hold on to him. One, they're getting healthier, starting to see these guys come back. Tre'Davious White is a guy that we're going to see actually be playing more and more, that only anchors that defense a little bit more. So, they've been a little banged up here, and I think they're going to get more and more healthy here. But as far as trading it, I don't know about you, Kevin. I've never had good success trying to trade away a defense and get really anything back in return for them.
Yeah, I haven't had much luck trading defenses. What I would tell you is, if the Ravens defense is out there, I would look at the Ravens defense, because they're another team that's getting healthier down the stretch.
And all the pieces they added over there.
And the pieces that they acquired, getting Roquan, I think that's something worth looking at. Denver's coming off a bye. I mean, you could look at Denver's defense. You could look at same thing with the Niners. They're just coming off a bye. You could look at the Niners defense. Obviously, I say the Eagles, but if they're not picked up in your league, y'all are doing something wrong anyway. But yeah, so you got a couple different options there. And if none of those are there, then you keep Buffalo and you run with it and hope that, them getting healthier kind of sparks it, because they should rebound after a tough loss to the Jets.
Spirit T saying he's dropping Mostert for Watson. That's walking a little on the wild side there.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think I would do it. It was just one sample size with Jeff Wilson. I don't know that I'd do that. I don't know that it helps me.
Right.
That's tough. I don't know that I make that move.
Next one. Do I drop A-Rob for Tony or Watson? Yes, I think Allen Robinson is very much a droppable guy that you could move on for. And it really depends on which way you want to go, right? Like Watson, Kevin made the point earlier. It's been 2 years since we've seen him actually play football and play a meaningful snap of football. And there's going to be a lot of rust to shake off there. But that's one of those that you're banking on that going down the stretch and for the playoffs, more so than anything. Mm-hmm. And really, in your case, Jaden, where you're talking about that you're picking him up because you're not going to play Deshaun Watson over Jalen Hurts. Like, it's going to take a very, very crazy matchup, something like that to come through, where Deshaun has is playing the Lions one week and, Hurts is going up against like the Bills defense or the Broncos defense or a great defensive unit out there that limits the upside there a little bit. And at that point, gets a little tough there. Kadarius Toney, again, you're hoping for some upside and some swinging for the fences there, but it's
Allen Robinson at that point.
Yeah, fair enough. I think at this point, I'd probably rather take the shot on Toney. Just I've been on the Allen Robinson train all season in a couple of different leagues, and it has ended in nothing but heartbreak at this point. But I can see what you're also saying too, because Toney didn't necessarily, while we saw him, we didn't necessarily like see him in that debut for Kansas City. Like he was there, but it wasn't
9 snaps, right?
Yeah.
Caught both of his targets for 12 yards. I mean, so he didn't do anything to say this guy's a bum, right? Like he's not screwing it up. But I do feel like Matt Stafford's getting a little bit more comfortable with Allen Robinson. By picking up Kadarius Toney, you're back at square one with Patrick Mahomes trying to find how Toney fits into this offense with Mecole Hardman scoring touchdowns the last couple of weeks, with Juju just got done seeing 12 targets in the game. You still have Travis Kelce. There's just a lot of moving pieces there in Kansas City, and none of them not named. I shouldn't say none of them. Travis Kelce is still number one. Juju has kind of cemented himself as the number two. So both are pass-heavy offenses. Yes, the Chiefs are a little bit more explosive, but I think I'd rather have the Rams number 2 and Allen Robinson than the Chiefs number 3, possibly 4 in Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, the Chiefs, nebulous situation.
Yes, correct.
Spirit T asking, what about Higbee? Again, I think I'd rather have all of the other tight ends that you've mentioned before Higbee at this point. I think I would rather have Dulcich. I'd rather have Njoku. I'd rather have Freiermuth than Higbee.
Fact.
So hopefully that answers the question there. And again, guys, any other questions? Let's throw them out there in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about them, get you guys ready, set to rock and roll here going into week 10. Kevin, before we head on into some Thursday night preview here, any thoughts out there as far as, or any additional thoughts, I should say, on the waiver wire?
Let's see here. No, nothing really. Like I'm not buying this Odell thing. Like I don't think he's going to be ready to make an impact for the end of the season. So yes, it's splashy. Yes, if the Cowboys sign him to a long-term deal, like it might bring some intrigue. And I say long-term, like longer than the rest of the season, 2-3 year deal. But other than that, there's not Garrett Wilson, right? I know some people kind of lost faith in him. I think Garrett Wilson is a possible wide receiver candidate. I think, what else am I thinking? That's kind of it, guys. Like it's just not. I don't see any deep dives this week that look good. Maybe Christian Watson.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, with Dobbs going down. Allen Lazard, I'm guessing, is rostered in your league, but Christian Watson is one that you could take a look at. Wan'Dale Robinson, he flashed, had a really bad game, and then a bye week, right? So I think there's some places where people dropped him. So if you're looking for just a possible boost at wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson is worth a dart throw to see if he could possibly help you in the flex spot.
What about a guy like Terrence Marshall?
No.
Okay.
They can't even feed the number one guy enough.
Yeah. Oh.
Right. DJ had back-to-back good weeks, and then the week you expect him to have a good week, he doesn't get targeted in the first half, right? Like, I don't think that Terrence Marshall is going to see the consistent pointage, right? If you're desperate, yeah, it's better than taking a 0. But you're looking for Terrence Marshall, you're going to be averaging, 6 to 8 points, right? So we'll call it a 7-point average for Terrence Marshall. As I'm jockeying around and looking at waiver wire pickups and drops and everything else, I'd rather have Devin Duvernay with Bateman being out the rest of the season. I'd rather have Devin Duvernay right now than Terrence Marshall.
Okay. Very good. Spirit T, would you drop Higbee to go get Deshaun Watson?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cosign. Jaden, should I start Foreman over Najee this week? I would. It's close, but I would. I see this one being maybe about a point to about a 1.5 differential overall between them. But Donta Foreman's going to be probably somewhere early rankings for me, probably has him somewhere around like running back 17, 18 on the week, whereas Najee's down there like running back 21, 22 on the week. They'll be close, so I think this year.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. I really do. Like, yeah, the Steelers are at home, but typically 3-6 versus 2-6. I mean, yeah, I'm okay with that. the Jets have been a little bit better against the run than they have been against the pass, right? And part of that's because, the Falcons. And part of that has been because the Falcons have been so generous with the pass that teams just aren't really running. They're just deciding to throw the ball. So based off of volume, I feel like the Panthers have shown a propensity to run the ball more consistently than the Steelers have. And there's a good chance Sam Darnold comes back. And if he does, he ain't scrambling. Like it's kind of he's more of a statue than Baker or PJ Walker by a long shot. So if we see Sam Darnold start, it's it's all for it. So I like Foreman over Najee this week.
Yeah, well, and PJ Walker is set to start again this Thursday night game. Chuba Hubbard, I didn't see the report on whether or not he missed practice today or not, but he's missed 2 games in a row. Still looked like he still showed up on the injury report Monday. So he's still banged up there. So it'll be interesting to see. And if he doesn't go, Dante is the sole guy there. And 2 weeks ago lit up the Falcons on the ground as well. Terrence asking, should I start the Broncos defense, special teams, or pick up the Saints, Giants, Titans, or Cards from waivers?
Broncos.
Cosign. Terrence asking, should I start Brady or Jimmy G?
Brady.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Brady as well. Jimmy G's been okay, but he has not.
Jimmy G is such a better NFL quarterback than he is a fantasy quarterback, right? Like he truly manages the game. What's helping Jimmy G obviously is Christian McCaffrey. But the Chargers are decent against the pass and terrible against the run. So that tells me that it feeds right into Kyle Shanahan only wanting to throw the ball about 20 to 25 times. We'll call it 25. Drop back 25 times in this game, and the rest of the time they're going to want to run the ball. So that doesn't speak well in my eyes for Jimmy G. I'd rather have Brady, who, for all intents and purposes, is probably going to be in another close game, or they're going to be down to Seattle at some point, and Brady's going to have to throw him back into it. I think the Niners can kind of keep the ball on the ground, take the air out of it a little bit, and still dominate for the most part against the LA Chargers.
Yeah, holy moly, if Tom Brady has a game where he throws 2 or 3 touchdowns, because he's certainly putting up the yardage to get it done from a fantasy perspective. It's touchdowns, just haven't brought him home.
Yeah.
B-dubs, should I drop Palmer, Deontay Johnson, Thielen for Lazard, or Hardman? I would not drop Deontay Johnson. I also would not drop Palmer at this point.
Cosign. If you're going to drop one, I'd drop Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
And
it'd be for Lazard. I don't know that I necessarily want to ride that Kansas City nebulous.
Yeah, I think your floor is safer with Lazard. Your ceiling's probably a little bit more exciting with Mecole Hardman. But again, he's the third. At best, he's the third option for Patrick Mahomes. Lazard, especially with Dobbs going down, Lazard should be the clear-cut one and only option. Now, it's a little bit tougher matchup this weekend with the Cowboys, but they do move Lazard around a little bit. Like, he's not going to be stuck on Diggs. He'll find some space and he'll get some yardage. But I think rest of season, I would rather have Lazard than Mecole Hardman. Or Thielen, right? That Lazard is the best out of those 3.
Facts. Alrighty. Terrence asking, if JT doesn't play this week, who's the safest start in RB2 spot? Roster, Colts, Jackson, AJ Dillon, Pacheco. Should I pick up Rachaad White? No, I wouldn't be necessarily looking to go with the Rachaad White side of things.
I would.
Okay.
I'm starting to see and read. I'm starting to read some rumblings out of Tampa Bay that White is going to be in line for some larger work here going forward. I think they really like the fact that he provides just a bit of a different skill set than Leonard Fournette does. And it really hasn't been working for Lenny. Lenny's been doing it off of volume alone. It's not necessarily production per touch. Rachaad White gives them a little bit more explosiveness out of the backfield. And sorry, I'm reading through it all. But yeah, I think I'd rather have Rashard White over Pacheco.
Yes, I actually, now that you go through that, Pacheco dealing with the Kansas City rotation there, and like we said, I can't remember if it was on last Tuesdays or the Friday show, but the snap percentage that these Kansas City running backs are getting is the number of opportunities that you would hope that they'd be getting, right? Like most of these Kansas City running backs are getting 17 to 25% of the snap share. Realistically, you would be hoping for an RB2 to be getting around 17 opportunities throughout the course of a game. So, okay, you talked me into it. I'll bump Rashad White over Pacheco.
All right.
I think at that point, though, A.J. Dillon's an interesting name to keep an eye on, because if Aaron Jones misses, and he could miss not only this week but a couple of weeks here, right? You got to keep very close attention on that injury report. While it wasn't reported as a high ankle sprain. It was reported, as like a low ankle sprain. Same type of sprain that Jonathan Taylor's been dealing with most of the season, and we've seen how that one's kind of turned out there. So, you need to be very cognizant of that, because if that's the case, then yes, AJ Dillon's in play, and Jackson is in play if Jonathan Taylor doesn't miss. You're talking about two guys that you should get the bulk of the workload for a running back there, and I would be okay going either route on that one.
Cosign.
So, very good. All right. Jaden, Tony or Jameis Williams when he comes back? At this point, I think I've got to take Tony. It's going to take time for Jameson Williams to develop the chemistry with Jared Goff, get fully worked into the system, get used to kind of that game speed and adjusting to that. Typically, it takes rookies usually 4 games to 8 games, kind of somewhere in that range, for them to really kind of catch up with the speed of the game. Now, there's always some exceptions year in, year out, right? Like the Justin Jefferson, the Jamar Chase, these types of guys that are otherworldly talents there. And I'm not saying that Jameson Williams can't be that guy, but he's also coming off of an injury that we typically see, wide receivers take 1.5 to 2 years to fully come back off of that one. And he's going to be much closer to that year timeline than he is anywhere past that.
Fact.
B-Dubs, Otton or Njoku this week? I think I'm going to take Otton. I want to see what Njoku looks like before I'm starting him.
Yeah, the Seahawks have a propensity to give up fantasy points to the tight end in bunches. So I think Otton is the answer for this week. But if it's only being able to roster one, I think I'm taking Njoku and just riding this week out and then keeping it the rest of the season.
Fair enough. Alrighty, let's go ahead and hit the Pine and Shine recap from last week. And Alex, I'm going to start him off with the Pine for his. He called for Alvin Kamara versus Baltimore, and that one turned out to be a hit on that one. How about your Pine recap here?
My Pine of the week on Tuesday was Jonathan Taylor, who turned out not to play. So it was an early week. I'm taking that as a win. He didn't play. Like
I gave you
here first.
I gave you that one as a tie since he didn't play.
Well, what the? I believe during it I said either Colts running back. To be fair, if we went back to last Tuesday's playback,
all right. You might have said that.
Colts running back.
I will give that to you, because I'm sitting there going, well, maybe I should go through and change mine, because my Pine was Brandon Cooks, who also didn't play.
Change yours.
All right, there we go. Now I'm only a half game back. All righty. So let's go ahead and just hit right into the shines here and the recaps there. You got Alex calling for the shine of Gerald Everett versus Atlanta.
Want.
Yep, exactly. What about your
that was
shine?
A real bummer for everybody, right? Like that was a bummer. My shine of the week was Miles Sanders, and it didn't quite pan out to everything I thought it could have been. But he got there. He got the touchdown. His yardage was right there, slightly above where everybody was at. So I guess maybe that might be the tie, Derek, honestly, because he didn't shine, but he definitely wasn't a bust. Like, he fulfilled his purpose on your roster.
He outperformed his consensus ranking. I gave it to you.
Fair enough.
My shine was a bump. I called for Jacoby Myers, thinking that he would have a little bit better game than he did. Well, he had a serviceable game for you, and you weren't upset if you played him as a flex. He was not very serviceable as a wide receiver too, which is where his consensus ranking would have put him going into the week. So that moves us to that moves me to actually we'll start with Alex. Alex sitting at 10-8. I'm sitting at 10-6-2. Kevin sitting at 11-7. Kevin taking the lead here by a game, it looks like now. So all right, we gotta get back after it now.
Here we go. Yep, up by what? Game? Yeah. Game over Alex, game and a half over Derek.
Actually, it's a game on me as well. The two ties equal out to a game. Yeah. All righty. So on we move. Let's go ahead and talk about some Thursday night football here. And again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat. Let's get you guys squared away, all of that good stuff. Thursday night, we got the Falcons and the Panthers meeting up. Atlanta's favored by 3. The over-under on this one, 43.5. What are your thoughts on this game?
I have Atlanta winning this game as the Panthers kind of continue to reel, but I do have the over. And I think Carolina will find enough offense to be able to put up 17 to 20 points in this game. And I think that we're going to see Atlanta put up 24 to 27 points this game. So I have Atlanta covering, and I'm taking the over for a rarity on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I was right there with you because normally when I look at these things, it's almost an immediate under for me, just the way Thursday nights play out, especially this season. But these are two teams that can get things done offensively just enough and both of them are just bad enough defensively for the over to come into play here, right? Like, it's not going to surprise me with a 43.5 over under that these teams can each score in the 20s. And at that point, I think that, it makes a lot of sense that you're going to see this thing get to an over on that one. And I do think Atlanta manages to cover this one here as well. It feels kind of like a push type of deal, but I do think that Atlanta finds a way to sneak out a 3+ win on this one. So be very interesting to see how this one plays out. A lot of fantasy. It's funny for a couple of teams not really that good. There is some pretty decent fantasy relevance here on a Thursday night game for a couple of teams that are kind of like meh. So, all right. Let's go ahead and look at Monkey Knife Fight and the touchdown dance. And for those of you out there that haven't had a chance to play Monkey Knife Fight, touchdown dance, fun little game over on monkeyknifefight.com. We play along over there. And it's a deal that for the touchdown dance, you pick 3 players from a specific matchup. In this case, it's going to be the Thursday night game, Atlanta versus Carolina. And you pick out your 3 players, and then you pick out how many touchdowns or more you think they're going to score. And that determines your prize. So 2.5 or more touchdowns is a ×2 prize. 3.5 or more touchdowns is a ×3 prize. And 4.5 or more touchdowns is a ×6 prize. And you can play along with us over on monkeyknifefight.com. Use the promo code GOBFF. First-time depositors get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Kevin, who you got playing touchdown dancing this week?
I have DJ Moore, Deonta Foreman, and Cordell Patterson.
I like it. What pricing are you going with there?
I'm just going ×2 on this one. I think I could go ×3 just because I'm not sure where the offense is going to come from if it's not those guys scoring touchdowns. But for just making sure I try and get one in the win column here, I'm going to go ×2.
Fair enough. I liked a couple of your calls there. I also went DJ Moore, Deonta Foreman. I think that both of those guys can easily make some magic happen here. But I also went out and took Marcus Mariota. I think that there's a good chance we see him get a rushing touchdown in this one and manages to put one into the end zone here. So that's kind of where I'm looking at and going. I'm also going to take a times 2 prize here. Any other thoughts on the Thursday night game or the Monkey Knife Fight?
No, I think this will actually be an entertaining Thursday night game, even though, like you said, it's 2 subpar teams, but they're both fighting for they still have stuff to fight for, right? Like this division is not settled at all. It's a very bad division with Tampa Bay and Atlanta jockeying for first place at 4 and 5. But every team in this division sub 500 right now. Now's the time for one of them to make a move. And this Thursday night game should tell us quite a bit about if Atlanta's ready to try and compete for a division title, regardless of record, or if everyone's going to kind of crumble in Tom Brady's wake and let him walk into another division championship.
Right. That would be the very interesting thing to see that play out there. This one here, right? The NFC South really kind of looking like the NFC East from the previous few years, where it was just, who could manage to not lose the most, instead of who was winning the most games and who really was looking to win the division. It was who could hold on the longest, and not lose it. Anyway, right. I digress. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Week 10 Pine and the Shines here. And we're going to start off with the Pines. I don't have any of Alex's calls for this week, so we're going to skip him on this one. And we may just chalk up 2 losses on that one for him. But we'll see how this one plays out. Kevin, what are your thoughts here on your Pine of the week?
Man, I felt it difficult to find like a good Pine this week as we were kind of coming and going through things. So I think what I'm going to rest on for a Pine this week is going to be David Montgomery. David Montgomery is a guy that we want to Pine this week. Justin Fields has been running the ball more. Khalil Herbert has been seeing a larger workload and eating into Montgomery a little bit. Yes, the Bears have the best rushing attack in the NFL, but David Montgomery seems to be getting left behind a little bit. And as juicy as this Lions matchup looks to be on paper, it's a divisional game. And so these teams know each other really well. And the Lions, coming off this win against the Packers, are kind of feeling themselves out a little bit. Like, hey, we kind of figured this out. We can get going here. So I'm going to say David Montgomery is going to be someone that you should avoid.
That is a spicy meets a ball there with the Detroit Lions defense, posing the stoppage on that one. But I like it. I can't say that I don't like it. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and move on into the Shines here. And again, right, I don't have Alex's, so we're just going to go ahead and play on through there. Kevin, who you got as a Shine this week?
Slacker. I have a couple Shines that I really like this week. Like I almost want to like double or nothing this week just to kind of stick it to Alex. So I'm going to start with Kenneth Walker. Tampa Bay has not been nearly as diligent with their rushing defense as they have in years past. And Kenneth Walker has been on a tear lately, finding the end zone and with his total yardage output. So I like him a lot this week. I also really like Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Yes, mediocre performance last week against the Packers. The Bears' pass defense is not nearly what the Packers is, right, wrong, or indifferent. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a big week there as well. And oh shit, sorry, there's one more, and I lost my notes. My phone doesn't recognize my face. I think another one that I really like is Devonta Smith on Monday night against the Commanders. So
very good.
I'm sure we will narrow this down just to make it the record, right? The league of record. Right. I'm sure we'll narrow this down so I can't just, scatter shot it all. But I really do like all 3 of these guys this week.
I like it. I'm going to take Tony Pollard, fresh off a hot game, going up against a matchup that should be very favorable for them, right? Green Bay has allowed a lot of yards on the ground, a lot of points to opposing running backs there. Tony Pollard was very, very efficient on the ground last week. Like that was the thing that was amazing to me is I heard a lot of people talking about, Tony Pollard. His workload didn't increase much this last week, even with Zeke not being there. So even if Zeke is back, I still think that Tony Pollard's you're going to see him get his fair share, and he's got some burst, he's got some zip, and Green Bay likes to allow opposing running backs to run all over the place, and not going to surprise me to see Dallas really kind of play behind the defense, run the ball, and let Dak take some shots here and there. But overall, I think this is going to be a lot of ground and pound kind of game. So I think they're in for a good matchup for Pollard as far as an opposing defense goes there. All righty. Well, Kevin, I do believe that's going to take us down here to the end of it. And if we don't have any other questions, comments, anything like that coming in, I think we're going to probably call it a night here. But any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Continue to pound away. There's a lot of fun matchups this week, right? I like the Cardinals Rams matchup, obviously with not Devontae, with DeAndre Hopkins and Cooper Kupp kind of, squaring off against each other. I like the Sunday night matchup with the Chargers and Niners, just to see what Austin Eckler is able to put together and just see how much Christian McCaffrey just kind of runs roughshod. Like I fully expect Christian McCaffrey to be RB1 at the end of this week. It's hard to put that on a shine when that's pretty much where his consensus ranking already is going to be. But I do expect him to fulfill that. Obviously, Cowboys, Packers is always must-see TV just because of name power behind it. But this could be the game that breaks Aaron Rodgers for good. But Cowboys defense coming off a bye is for real. And for my, our hometown viewing pleasure, Broncos Titans, a low-scoring game, bet the under. But the Broncos historically have done a pretty damn good job against Derrick Henry, and this defense is good, and they don't have to worry about a whole lot of passing options. So, you'll see Justin Simmons sneak down into the box and help stop Derrick Henry. I believe I said Zeke earlier, didn't I?
No, you said Derrick Henry.
Okay, good. To stop Derrick Henry and see if they can use some of that blueprint that the Chiefs used. It'll be interesting to see if Tannehill plays in this one or not, because it's Malik Willis. I like the Broncos' chances because they're going to be in the game. Not that Ryan Tannehill goes gangbusters, but he does pose more of a threat with his arm than Malik Willis does.
Well, that and Tannehill's just efficient with what he does, right? Like, he manages to scramble when he needs to, picks up touchdowns on the ground even when he needs to, and typically doesn't turn the ball over much. So, he's a very, very efficient quarterback, but I like it. I like it. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for us. You can find us again on Friday. We'll be live again, 11 p.m. Eastern, hitting up all of the games coming up from the Week 10 slate. And you can find it right here on the YouTube channel, Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Also, youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. And that @GoodOldBoysFF is also where you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Shoot us over any questions that you might have, anything like that. And let's get you rocking and rolling on that one. And actually, now that I think about it, Kevin, we did have one question come in that I didn't get a chance to talk about earlier. So it was, they've got Lamar on a bye. Who should I start or who should I pick up for Week 10? Their options are Daniel Jones, Jimmy G, Matt Stafford, Mariota, Goff, Rodgers. I think I'm going Mariota against Carolina.
Mariota. I think I'm going Mariota. I'm going Stafford against Carolina or the Cardinals as my number 2. Then Goff is my number 3.
Then probably Jimmy G.
Yeah, something in that nature.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on that 1, 2, 3 there. So absolutely. But guys, that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.